Welcome back to another episode of Barn Table Talks. I'm your host, Benji Bonahay, here with my co-host, Travis Corman, and today the guest on the show is Alex Helms. Alex, how are you doing today?
Doing pretty good. How about you guys?
Oh, not bad, not bad. We're going to jump into our
icebreaker
question. That's what we're going to start it
You
off
weren't
with.
prepared for this one.
No,
Oh, boy.
This one was not on the list.
Oh, man.
All right. You can only get one food again for the rest of your life. What is it?
Ooh.
Wait, I'm going to complicate this question.
Oh, no.
I
Okay.
didn't get to preface this question either, but I have to answer it too. Is this like you get like one strict thing? Or is this like, I can get PB&J? Or like, what is this?
We'll make it a meal. Like
One
you
meal.
Can, you can
Okay.
do PB&J, some kind of
Okay.
meal, but one meal for the rest of your life.
Man, I'd have to go with pizza. It's too, so dynamic and
Okay.
so many options.
I like
Big
that
pizza
answer.
fan.
Big pizza. I like that.
I
Travis, what do you got?
was told about the pizza. I was talking to a guy that went over to Italy yesterday. And he said, you think you find good pizza here? He's like, you can get the ugliest piece of pizza there. Like, it's just flat and looks like nothing special. He said, it is the best pizza you'll ever have in your life.
In Italy?
Yeah, he said the top 3 meals he's ever had in his life were in Italy.
Wow.
And I said,
Well, the
I
real
can't.
question is the Hawaiian pizza. That's the real debate, right?
Right, is it? There's
Do you take pineapple on or off, right?
I just don't do fish on it.
That's fair.
I've never had fish on pizza. I don't know if I'd even want to try that.
Man, my meal, what would it be? I don't know. I wasn't ready for this one. Did too much talking. I would have to go with a cold meat sandwich.
Okay. That's good. You can basically eat that whenever.
I can
Breakfast, lunch,
I
dinner?
can warm it up. I can keep it cold. I can do whatever I want with that thing. I can do that.
So we have 3 kids and like one of the first thing my wife craves after like having the baby is like a cold cut sandwich because you're not supposed to eat
Which
like
makes
raw
no
lunch
sense to
meat.
me. Like, make no sense to me.
Yeah. But that's what like she's like, bologna sandwich or something, right?
Yep. You can go from fried bologna to ham. I mean, just cold meat. I'm good. Like, any kind of sandwich.
Any
I'm
kind.
good with. Yep.
That's a good one.
What do you? What do you got?
Oh, I'm going to go with the old classic, and this is probably going to get boring after a while now that I think about it, but probably burger and fries.
You are going to be one.
That's what I mean. If I eat that all the time, but
You're going to be a balloon.
I still feel like I can eat a burger whenever. I think I'm going to have to go with that. It's just, give me a week, though. It'll get old. I bet it would.
We should try it next week.
No, man. I'm going to start running back to the gym then. Gee.
Every meal.
Oh, man. That would be...
With or without the grease, right?
Yes, exactly. That'll be a game changer. So...
Burger and fries. That's an American food.
That
for
is
you.
an American food right there.
So,
Surprising.
There you go. So, well, Alex, that's normally what we start out here with, trying to get you going here and stuff. And so, tell us a little about yourself, a little background. What do you got?
All right. Well, depends how far back you want to go.
Oh,
but,
you can go back as far as you want. We got all the time in the world.
Good. Yeah. So I grew up in Decatur County. Grew up about 3 miles east of Westport. Went to South Decatur. Pretty much my whole life through school and everything. Was super involved with FFA. Played a lot of sports. Small school, easy to play a lot of sports when there's like 10 kids in your class that play sports, right? Had a lot of good experiences and stuff. Through high school, worked for like a lot of local farmers, like baling hay. Did a lot of yard work, mowing grass, weed eating and stuff. Part of like FFA, SAE projects and stuff. So, was just kind of super involved with school growing up and everything. My mom and dad don't farm, but I help, a lot of local farmers, and then my uncle farmed. So I did a lot of helping them around the farm.
So is that kind of where you were drawn to farming because of your uncle like that? Or
Sure, yeah, helping him out a lot, through the summers and stuff. I mean, that was a big interest. And then like my ag teacher was Don Hudson at South Decatur for years. And I still am really good friends with his sons. So like, just being super involved in FFA and like, such a good mentor from him, like I was like super involved with soil judging, Did some like crops and forestry judging, parliamentary procedure, just all the FFA activities and stuff. So just like being involved in ag, pretty much through at least junior high and on, very involved, kind of kept me interested. And then I graduated from South Decatur in 2011. I knew I wanted to go in ag. I kind of had the mentality. I was like, well, if you don't grow up on a farm, you can't farm, right? Because that's challenging. So I, started out in ag econ. And then, I was going to minor in agronomy, started taking the agronomy courses, really enjoyed the agronomy courses. So I was able to add that as a major instead of just a minor. So
Where were you going for school for this?
Purdue University.
Purdue,
sorry, yeah.
Boiler Up. Sorry, I knew it, but I just had to add that.
We'll get into that a little bit more. I actually grew up a huge IU fan.
Oh.
I try not to tell too many people that, but I figure if Purdue gives me the degrees and gives me a job, I probably, shouldn't be too big of an IU fan anymore. And Purdue's good at basketball. IU's kind of terrible, so it's easy to be a Purdue fan right now.
That's true.
So,
that is true.
So you get to the tournament, right?
Yeah.
Until you get to the tournament.
We don't have to talk about that. But yeah, this was all at Purdue. And I was involved in like the soil resource lab at Purdue and stuff. I was, I guess, really involved with soil and just really liked the agronomy and everything. And then in 2015, I graduated from Purdue, and I was sort of debating going to like a grad school or like, just going straight into industry and stuff. And I don't know, for grad school, my, maybe grades were a little borderline. And I started off college, maybe, not the best attitude
focused.
Sure. Yeah. I really pulled it together the last 2 years.
There you go. Finish strong.
That's right. But I did, I got, I found what I really liked. So then I got super interested in it. So then I sort of debated it, and then like, I got an offer from Monsanto, who's now Bayer, to work at a seed processing plant in Illinois, in Mason City, Illinois. And, like the pay coming out of college for that job was like similar to like what a lot of like, people were coming out with their grad level, pay. So, everybody's like, well, you should just take it, don't waste an extra 2 years, so I went ahead and took that job. So right after college, I moved to Mason City, Illinois, which is in central Illinois. Super famous comedy club there, apparently. It's like,
really?
Yeah, it's a town the size of Westport, but like all the
really,
all of the famous comedians, I guess, go through there. Like,
oh, wow.
Donnie Baker, was very popular there. A lot of the guys I worked with knew who he was and like had his cell phone number.
I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah, if you ever listen to like Bob and Tom in the morning or anything, you'll hear them talk about
the
shows.
tour they're on and where they're going.
And they'll say Mason City, Illinois, and they'll emphasize Illinois because Mason City, Iowa is a much bigger town, much more common, but like this little podunk Mason City, Illinois is where the comedy show is.
Didn't know that.
Yeah. So, all right, we're done. You learned something, Yeah.
Next time.
Yep. But yeah, I was out there for about a year and a half. I really enjoyed my job and everything. And my, girlfriend and fiance at the time, who's now my wife, we both kind of knew that we sort of would want to be closer to like where we grew up. She grew up in Enochsburg.
Gotcha.
So she's from Decatur County. She went to North Decatur. But yeah, we knew we would, if it was possible, we wanted
get back around.
Yeah, fairly near, better than a 4-hour drive to Illinois, although that isn't terrible.
Right. Yeah.
It's not convenient either.
Yeah. Not convenient, but not horrible.
Right.
But my friend, Chris Whipple, actually, he's a crop insurance local guy.
No, Chris.
He told me about a position at CPAC that was opening up. So his father-in-law's brother was the superintendent there. He had retired. The person whose job I took, replaced the superintendent, and then that opened up a job there at CPAC. And that was, we had just got married like 2 months before that. So like my wife moved out to Illinois for like a month, it was like looking for jobs and trying to get interviews. And then I was like, actually, do you want to move back
you go.
home? Which CPAC is the Southeast Purdue Ag Center, which is in Jennings County. So not necessarily Decatur County, but,
right.
Obviously very, very close and much closer than, Mason City, Illinois.
Yep.
So now what do you do at CPAC?
Well, so I actually, about a year ago, I kind of switched my roles a little bit. So I no longer just specifically work at CPAC. I became like the assistant director of the Purdue Ag Centers. So CPAC is one of 8 remote like research farms for Purdue University. And when my role at CPAC, was kind of specific to CPAC. So I specifically worked there, put out the research plots. And then our director of the ag centers had retired. The assistant director became the director, and then it, had the void for the assistant director. And because of COVID, those 2 positions like went remote, and since it's, those 2 positions were supposed to be kind of working with these remote centers, like it wasn't like a requirement for them to go back to the campus location. So, the good thing from COVID for me was like, it allowed me to like apply for this job.
Yeah.
So, almost a year ago, I started this kind of new role. So instead of just working specifically at CPAC, I sort of get to work with all 8 of the research centers.
I got you.
Yeah.
The role that all these eight centers provide, what role do they provide? Yeah,
so each farm, is a little different. Each one maybe has its own little specialty. The idea is that these outlying farms are supposed to be used for research and demonstration, maybe to show like a modern practice. Or just maybe some crazy practice that people have wondered about.
Drones.
Exactly. Yeah. That is exactly right. Yeah. And just like try new things, and then, people can come out and look at it and see like, oh, that was cool, but it doesn't really fit, or that's cool, maybe I'll pursue it. So like for CPAC, specifically, they tried to get a farm in, different regions of the state. So Southeast Purdue Ag Center is supposed to sort of encompass the southeast part of the state. There's a farm in Bedford, or just outside of Bedford. It's predominantly cattle. They have like the Indiana Bull Evaluation Program.
Okay.
There's a farm down by Patoka Lake.
I didn't know that.
Yep, they almost border Patoka Lake down to the shoreline, but they are predominantly cattle too. They do a lot of like high density, high stocking, like management intensive grazing.
Okay.
There's a farm in Knox County, which is Vincennes. They do, that's watermelon capital of Indiana, and so like they do a lot of like melon research. There's a farm up kind of 30 minutes outside of Muncie, so that kind of captures.
NEPAC Northeast?
No, that one's the Davis Purdue Ag Center.
Oh, okay.
Jeff Boyer is the superintendent there.
Okay.
I think he's worked with you. Yeah.
Yep.
So your role doesn't specifically just focus on one. You basically look at all the different centers across Indiana, right?
Yeah. Up to about a year ago.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
Prior to that, it was specific to CPAC.
Gotcha.
Which is where we kind of got to know Alex
Sure.
and through those programs and stuff.
Yeah.
So
Cool. Yeah, I actually worked up at Purdue's research center for a little bit of my senior year.
Is that the acre farm?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So that's one thing that's sort of interesting about like the research farms is like, people, it's like, well, it's Purdue, but like internally they're like very separate. So like these 8 remote farms are managed under like, ag administration. that acre farm is managed by specifically the agronomy department.
Gotcha.
There's an animal science farm that's managed specifically by the animal science department.
Yep.
So, we
coexist, but it's different, for lack of better words, different business entities.
Exactly.
Gotcha,
Yeah.
Different budgets, different business entities, all of that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yep. And, acres close to campus, so it looks a lot nicer than a lot of our outlying farms, so we don't necessarily maybe get some of the donations or the budget that, the show farms kind of get.
Yep.
But
well, that even goes back to your previous career. I'm sure that at Monsanto and Mason City, it probably wasn't the prettiest place to work.
It was pretty ugly. Yeah.
it did its job.
Yeah, it was very functional.
Yes,
very functional. And then you would go to St. Louis, the headquarters.
Right.
Like, oh, this is the desks go up and down.
Right.
They have all the nice.
All
stuff.
the wheels are on the chairs. Like
yeah. When I started at Monsanto, like my desk was just like. I remember having a nicer desk in my college, apartment. I was like, wow, I've really hit the big time here, and like my first year there, like my boss there, he was like, all right, it's time to upgrade your desk, and so I got like a nice desk and like, these executive style chairs and stuff. And everybody's like, whoa. And I was like, have you been to St. Louis? Everybody there has this. So yeah, it is funny how that all works.
It is. We deal with a little bit of the, with Bear now on a few accounts and stuff like that. And you get to go to different research centers and you can see where their focus or where their publicity hits and where the, where that corporate attention comes into, because it is a showpiece, and then you go to one that's the working piece, and it's like, these are totally different right here.
That's the one with the junk pile where they're like pulling scrap iron out to weld together.
That's right. You're exactly right.
Cobble it up.
Yep. And the other one's got a really nice shop, and it's everything's under roof. And the other one, everybody's working outside, and know the feeling on that. So that's funny.
Yeah,
that's funny. So then, what you do now then is you try to. Do you assist in the programs they're putting out? Do you put together the what do you do now?
That's a good question. I'm still trying to figure that out.
Shouldn't bring that up.
No. So so a little bit of it is trying to fill the gap between the researchers and the farms. There might be a research project that are somebody on campus wants to do, or they don't know what's reasonable. So we'll kind of be the liaison a little bit between the farm and campus and
reality and ideas.
Yes, that is. It happens more often than But and then we sort of help manage the budgets and stuff, and then there's just administrative work that goes with it, any kind of corporate, you have to set your goals and people meeting their goals,
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
So, you get bogged down doing administrative work in this role. My role at CPAC was way more fun, but this job pays more. So,
more headaches. The higher you go up, the more headaches you get and the less fun it becomes.
Yeah. So, there is the trade-off. But yeah, I do enjoy, my role at CPAC was, it was mostly specific to CPAC, but when I was, I'm going to jump around a lot. So it's probably, when I lived out in Illinois, when I first started, I was, by myself, living in an apartment, nobody.
Mm-hmm.
I had some friends I'd go to maybe a bar with after work or something, but that wasn't an every night thing. So, I was pretty bored in the evenings, and I was Iowa State had this online master's program. So I started to do that because I had nothing better to do, kind of, so I started my online master's program when I lived in Illinois. And then it was kind of a work at your own pace. So you could have did it in your regular 2-year time frame, or if you had a full-time job like I did, you could take one class per semester and drag it out 5 or 6 years, which is what I did. but part of that program was to have you had to have some kind of project. So like if you go to a campus master's program, you would have this like thesis where you would have like a field experiment or a lab experiment, because like Iowa State's remote master's program, like not everybody's going to have the same opportunity to work in a lab or research farm. You could do like a case study or a literature review and stuff. Well, it was very convenient for me to like start working at a research farm, because I was like, well, that can just be my special project. So we had these, potassium fertility experiments that had been, neglected for like over a decade because, we can't put potassium on it because somebody might want to use it one day, but nobody's using it.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, that'll just be my project. We can start using those again. And that sort of helped. I did it at CPAC, but then some of the other farms had those same fields. So I started kind of working at the other farms a little bit just because of like my master's program, which, really helped me actually prepare for this job unknowingly, because I had no plans to go for this job necessarily that I currently have. But it, helped me kind of start working with those other farms, the other superintendents, kind of establish that relationship with them. Yeah. Good rapport with those guys. So yeah, it inadvertently, and then the drone stuff took off and I started working with all of them.
What year did you start doing that?
So, I started at CPAC in 2000, like maybe the fall of 2016. And I when I first started, my manager there, the superintendent who's still there, Joel Wallman, he's like the manager you would want. Like, he's like, you got to find something you're interested in and like kind of take off with it and stuff. And, he kind of had like some ideas in his head, and, I was like, well, if there's things you want to do, and, he mentioned UAVs, and he's like, if you have any interest, like, he's like, you should like go get your Part 107. Which at that time it was still kind of like new and difficult and all this stuff. And I was like, all right, yeah, and like, I was new at CPAC, so I didn't have like a major role where I was like busy from like the start to end of the day. So I was like, well, yeah, I'll start looking into this and stuff. So in 2017, got my Part 107 license, and then we got our like first Phantom 4 and started, using it to kind of fly some fields.
You were legal before. How many people do you think owned Phantom 3s, Phantom 4s, whatever, right? Still do.
I would say almost everybody who's like
ever had a drone.
Yeah, has done it illegally, right?
Right.
Without licensing.
Yeah. Well, we like the first year I remember I had my Part 107, the cap on, 400 foot, right?
Right.
And this was, near like CPAC and stuff.
Right.
And,
which is there's an operations center down there that you have to really watch, your restricted flight zones.
And just like 5 miles away, there's like the North Vernon Airport, which is small scale, but it's still like, important. And I had a friend that...
They'll be glad to hear that.
Well,
it's out to you, North Vernon. You're important.
So he pulled out the drone. He's like, oh, this is like the one you have at CPAC. And I was like, yeah. He just like took it up to like 1,200 feet.
Right.
I was like, oh, okay. I was like, that's a really neat
can't do that.
But I'm gonna walk away if somebody pulls up.
Looking around for like airplanes coming in.
Yeah. So it's like sort of like the Wild West with people just
It hasn't changed much though.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, so and you'll correct me if I'm wrong, but there's very little. There's the necessity and the need. I completely understand all the licensing and requirements and stuff like that, having gone through them ourselves. But there's very little enforcement, which is going to, it's going to hurt one of these days. Somebody's going to get in trouble.
Yeah, so somebody's going to get, an example made out of them.
Or worse, someone's going to get hurt.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's very... And, like, I think there's, like, two things that are, like, working against each other. It's, like, one... some of the licensing is a little bit unreasonable.
Yeah.
So that like discourages people from going through it properly. But then, when you don't go through it properly, then you don't understand why there are rules.
Right.
So then you don't understand like when it's safe or or not safe.
Right.
You know, and I think the FAA's acknowledged that, and they're trying to make some of those changes and make it like more reasonable. Like, you know, you have to file an exemption to not wear, you know, your helmet while you're flying a UAV. Like, you know, that's unreasonable.
Yeah.
Right.
But like they have this like set of rules in place, and like the drones fell under these rules. Now they have, you know, they can't just say like there are no rules. You know, so now they're trying to go through a process of changing the rules, making them specific.
For specific UAVs.
Yeah. So I think we're, you know, getting there. And then like, you know, there's so many people who are doing it that like, yeah, I think the FAA is getting overwhelmed. And, you know, so it's even more challenging to enforce.
The process to get a 137. I mean, you used to be 18 months.
Oh, gosh.
To get a 137. They're clearing those things sometimes in 4 months now.
Yeah, I mean, the turnaround is so much better than what we like when we were going through it.
Absolutely.
So 107's your pilot's license, right?
Yeah.
What's the 137?
So that's your like that's the FAA's like aerial applicator license.
Okay,
so
gotcha.
107 sort of allows you to fly small drones. 137 allows you to like
apply from the air.
Gotcha. Okay.
If you're a company, you have to possess a 137.
Okay.
To be able to apply liquid from the air.
Even if you're not a company.
Yeah.
Right? Even if
So
like
it's just being a home farm.
Correct.
Even that. Okay.
Yep. Like
That's a federal license. The 107's a federal license. And then you get into your state licensing well below that. Well, not well below, but on a different level.
Yeah. Okay.
Beyond that.
Yeah. And that's, you know, the state chemists with their category 11. I mean, it's the same way, like, you know, they've talked about making a drone specific aerial.
Because Cat 11 says it is nothing to do with a drone. Nothing.
Yeah. It's
in
like,
this state.
Is it just planes? Like I get what?
It's how to calibrate airplanes and how to
Like
what your
you know,
payload
your-
is, like your.
But you still need that though, right?
You have to have that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's a little interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. And you got to get your Cat 11. I mean, you have to have your Cat 1 because.
You have to have your core to get your Cat 11.
But you have to have your Cat 1. Like in our situation, if you're going to make $1 off of it,
Oh, yeah.
if you're going to do anything for
Sure.
that, you're commercially applying it and stuff, which is also what requires you to get the 107 if you're doing anything from a drone that's a half a pound large or larger.
Yeah.
Essentially. So there's all kinds of restrictions that. I don't want to say I appreciate them. The problem is it's just like driving a car, right? Anybody's going to sell somebody a car. As long as they got the money, they're going to send it out the door. They don't care whether they have insurance or not. The only reason they care if they have insurance is if they actually need it because they're putting it on the paperwork. That's the only reason. They could drop it immediately when they leave and nobody cares at that level.
If your objective is to sell drones, then you're going to sell drones.
Exactly right.
You know?
Exactly right.
Like that's bad business if your objective is to sell drones and you don't sell drones.
And I don't think that I don't know how they're going to regulate that. Now we have been, there's been quite a few banks that reach out and say, what is the legal process? So we can understand when we're lending on these things saying, hey, you guys have to have and maintain, we need this documentation saying you're legal to even fly this, which I think that's exciting because that's a step towards
making
enforcement. You know, not from a law stand side, but from a financial stand side, because somebody's going to get hung on one of these things, you know, at some point.
Well, yeah, and then you know, like, then it's going to set off another set of regulations that make it more strict for people who are already kind of doing the right things and everything.
Which is. That's hard because they try to put these out here to get to people that aren't doing it, but they're not going to do it anyways, the hard part.
Exactly, yeah.
You know,
the people who are following the rules are following the rules. That,
yeah,
you know.
Yeah, that's not what you need to worry about. It's the people that just don't because you're not going to capture that audience anyway.
Yep.
Yeah.
More than likely.
Yeah, I mean, anecdotally, I hear stories and stuff, and like, one person told me like, they were like, spraying dicamba out of like a drone, it's like, well, first of all, it's hard enough to even like spray dicamba, let alone,
you'd be surprised. I mean, honestly, we've been approached and saying, hey, will you guys spray this? I'm like, first of all, I have to follow label. Like there's too much on the line.
Yeah.
Like there's way too much on the line like go find someone else. I mean, I'm not doing that.
I mean, the liability is like, pretty outrageous if like 240
Right.
little fine particles drifting over
Right.
to, like grapes or
Right. And you're trying to do a herbicide from a drone is challenging enough
sure.
because you're doing an aerial applied killer
Yeah.
at that point. Fungicides are one thing, right? But then you throw an insecticide in there, it complicates it even more because of our habitat and pollinators and stuff like that. We really have to pay attention to all that stuff, which thankfully, they've made that easier to see and register pollinator habitats and stuff like that. I mean, it's amazing what has to go through someone's mind when they're the one in charge of the flight and like, oh man,
Yeah.
there's a lot riding on it. And then, we try to split that task out, and I know you've done plenty of applications and you're well versed in all this. We try to split that task out and let the chemical and that side of things. That is the task of the person that loads the drone, mixes the chemical, and stuff like that. The person that's in charge of flight operations, that's what they're in charge of, making sure they maintain and are legal on that. So we actually require 2 fully licensed people on the ground. And stuff like that, but it's not like that everywhere for sure.
Well, yeah. Some people are really just winging it.
Cowboy. I mean, it's a Wild West, like you said earlier. There's a lot. I mean, and I don't, and you may be able to echo this and stuff. I think there's a misled. I don't know. There's something in there that like, man, I'm going to get in this, and I'm going to get rich.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of people that enter it thinking, oh, geez, this is going to be crazy good.
Yep.
Well, and that's what, like, that happens a lot.
It does.
And people, like, they want to make it like their full-time business and stuff and not have anything else that, and it's like, well, that's probably not reasonable. You got to have, like, that could be a part of your business.
You go spray a couple
There's
days.
special equipment, though. But they're special equipment. The drones are so specialized. I can't take that. I don't know what that T40 weighs back here. I can't just put a camera on it and be like, I'm going to go fly and take pictures of power lines with a T40.
Exactly.
First of all, you get into that power line and you've caused more problem than you've prevented.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't do that type of stuff. So there's so much, like most jobs, there's specific tools and specific equipment that has to go along with it.
Oh, yeah.
And you got to have that work lined up before you can really invest into all those things.
Well, sure, yeah, and yeah, I mean, coming up with like a business plan for it and making sure, like, yeah, you can make it cash flow and everything.
Yep.
And that's one thing. Like, if a farmer maybe is trying to do it for themselves, like maybe they just have to break even. Maybe they don't factor in their time because,
Right.
like,
What farmer really factors their time in?
Well, exactly, right? If you did, you would never farm.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But then, like, from a business aspect, like, you not only have to break even, but then you have to make money.
Right.
Or else why do you do it?
Right. You're exactly right. I mean, you have to have an ROI of a certain percentage, or you'd be better off sinking that money somewhere else.
Yeah. Well, and then, you guys who, like, do it right and everything, like, it's more prohibitive. Like, you're trying
Well, it costs us more per acre to even operate out there.
Sure. If you're spraying, like, 25-foot swath
Yeah.
versus like
35.
35.
Yep.
It's
Exactly.
like, and
If you carry insurance on your drone and someone else doesn't, that's still more cost per acre that you have to recoup. I mean, and the insurance on those drones aren't cheap,
yeah.
especially when you label herbicide on those things.
Yep.
I mean,
And if you're spraying fungicide and, if you don't have a bad disease year, somebody might not realize if they did a bad job or
Right.
not. So they're like, well, that was just as good as what you did. But
Right.
they're going to get burn on it
Right.
eventually.
Yep.
we saw some striping happen out there. I guess it'd be east of Greensburg here last year, and it was one of those deals where the swath width was set to the manufacturer said you could spray. Well, through testing, you understand, and many other people I'm sure do as well. You just can't do that.
Yeah.
And it's doing the quality job, not a quantity. There is a balance there because there is a balance. We've went to on the bottom side and still and you just can't get enough acres in a day to even pay the bills.
Yeah.
And
you still have to make money.
you still got to make money. And there's a place for drones too. And this kind of got off topic, I guess. But I know you have a lot of experience with drones, but it's not the back 3 acre patch that you can't even see. because it's a pain for me to get my tractor across that creek and back around that turn and everything anyway. Like, oh, you can stop at the church up there and just take off and fly it back there and spray it, can't you?
Not exactly.
Not exactly.
Some people might.
Yeah, right. And for 3 acres right away, that goes through your mind is you're like, well, what's the return on that? If I'm charging $15 an acre, I'm going to make $45 to risk crashing my drone into a tree or getting it stuck 80 foot high, which we've been down.
We've been down that road.
We've down there in your neck of the woods, actually.
It's interesting.
That was a fun day.
That was not a fun day.
Yeah, I would say like the two biggest, misconceptions with drones is that they're designed for like small patches and like these hard to get to places, and that it's for like beginning farmers and stuff. Because for one, like the small patches, yes, they can do it, but like it's not efficient.
Yeah.
And then like, I hear all the time like, oh, that's good for like beginning farmers, and I was like, beginning farmers are trying to buy combines and tractors. Like a drone is for somebody who's established and it already has the farm, stuff paid for. This is like another part of their business.
Right. In that situation, they're viewing that as a cost saving tool.
Yeah.
Not a tool that's making them money.
Exactly.
Right. And so they're weighing it out saying, well, if I'm going to pay someone else $15, $16 an acre to go apply this, I'm going to make chemical. I'm saving that much money. Well, yeah, but that's not.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily work like that.
It doesn't work like that. Yeah. The ROI on that is really, really long. And the cost of ownership, I mean, it's not an if you put one down, it's a when, is what it comes down to. I mean, anybody that's flown them long enough is.
Yeah. They're
gonna
almost
understand that.
idiot-proof, right? Almost.
But we're all idiots at some point on the other end.
That's
I
right.
mean,
exactly.
The long and short of it, I mean, I've been an idiot on it and stuff. I mean, we've all, it's doing what it's told to do, and sometimes you don't understand what you're telling it. It's miscommunication between you and it most of the time.
Yeah, a funny story of like the idiot-proof that there was it was with the little Phantom drone, so it wasn't the big drone, but like something was messed up with like the obstacle sensors
Avoidance,
and stuff.
yep.
Yeah, and so I like recalibrated it, and I was trying to test if they were working. So I was like, well, I'll just kind of like fly it close to the building and see if it's going to stop, and like I was like kind of like inching towards it and stuff. And I was like, all right, this is working. So like I backed up in like full ramming speed, because it's supposed to stop, it just smashed right into the side. I was like, almost idiot. Almost,
We could have done this with a piece of paper or something.
Something smaller than just a wall.
Yeah. So even.